When we're making art, we can't think always of the exact thing we're trying to depict. If we did, we become overwhelmed because there's so many little details and nuances. There's so many parts to what it is that we're trying to capture. Instead, we learn to block in images. We learn to break them into smaller portions, manageable sized things that we can tackle one at a time. We still have to look how it's all tied together, but it gives us a roadmap, it gives us a plan. This is a lot like life. When we have dreams or aspirations, we have to think about how can we break down the steps to obtain what it is that we seek in this life. We learn this in the studio. Welcome to my Welcome back, my artists. Today we are going to take the mini studio we created, the photograph that was a high contrast that we've broken into 5 separate values, and we are going to recreate it as a piece of artwork. Don't be intimidated by this. I assure you it's going to go well. When you are looking to recreate an image like this, you want to look at your blocked in sections just like you do with these shapes. You're recreating shapes. You're not recreating a face. Yes, in the back of our mind we want to think, oh, does it look like a face? But ultimately we just want to focus on the shapes that we've designated. On this sheet of paper, I have taken my original photograph and I've copied just the shapes to the best of my ability. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I went ahead and traced over all of my lines with pen when I was done, simply because I wanted it to stand out for you to be able to see more. You're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be copying those shapes onto the paper. However, I'm aware that some of you feel really intimidated by whatever it is that you're trying to copy onto the paper. So let me show you another trick you can do. If you can print your image, you can cut out your image. So, boom. Now my image is broken into nice sized chunks that I can simply trace onto the paper. Step 1, copy the shapes. That's our first step, is going to be simply tracing those shapes, copying those shapes, transcribing those shapes, whatever you have to do, you're recreating that photograph on a sheet of paper. From here, we need to designate our values, and then we're going to need to start to add in the value.
Now that we have our image drawn out on the paper, we've got these shapes and we've got these different values, we need to make our value scale. Now, as far as shading today, you can use shading, you can use cross-hatching, you can use stippling, you can use grading, you can use saturating, whatever it is that you want to use to create your 5 levels of value, you can use it. If after you get your 5 levels of value, you want to start blending in by putting those in-between numbers of value, go for it. I'm mostly just looking to see that you're using your blocked image to create your final image, thinking about those 5 extreme values.
Step 2, create a value scale in your chosen technique.
Before we start though, we want to create a guide for ourselves. So up here at the top or at the bottom of your page, we're just going to make some boxes. In my case, I just made 6, but if you want to make 5, that's all right too. I'm going to have this one represent my whitest white. I'm going to have this represent my darkest dark. Now I'm going to number those. Now my original image, I only have 5 values represented. What I'm doing here is I went ahead and gave myself a very dark number 6, and this will help keep me in check. I know that one is going to be just the paper itself, so I'm not shading it. But the other ones I want to make sure that I'm not going as dark as that number 6 is.
Step 3, label your value numbers.
If it makes it easier for you to go through and label these areas, go ahead. I would suggest though labeling them very small or very lightly.
Step 4, start filling in the shapes with value.
From here, I'm going to start to shade. Now there's different ways you can do this. You can either work from top to bottom, from side to side. If you're left-handed, you'll want to work from your right-hand side to your left-hand side. If you're right-handed, you want to work from the left hand to the right-hand side, or you can work from above going down. I would not do down going up because you're going to smear that graphite. You're also going to want to make sure that you've got a scrap piece of paper today. So I have the scrap piece of paper, I can rest my hand on it while I'm shading. If you are the kind of person that wants to go through and establish all of your 2 values now, great. your 3 values now? Great. If you want to piecemeal this together, that's fine, but watch your craftsmanship. Make sure that you're not smearing that graphite as you're doing your shading. I almost forgot. You made a value finder, and this is where this value finder is going to come in helpful. I can go through and I can say, okay, my 2 that I have there is very close to the 2 here. So now as I'm shading in this area, I can use this as a gauge to make sure I'm not going too dark or too light. I can also go through and check it on here and try to compare my darknesses with the darknesses on my value finder. A lot of observational art or mimetic art, meaning from reality, deals with comparing things. That's why science and art are so similar, is because we're not just haphazardly jumping in and starting to shade. We're looking at the differences between our levels of value. We're trying to make comparisons. We're contrasting 2 different things to see what makes those 2 things match up the correct way. We're doing a lot of observation, and that's really what art in school is going to be about. It's about improving those observation skills while also expanding your knowledge on who you are, your self-awareness. But that's enough of me yakking. Let's get this shaded in. Here you're really seeing the benefit of using a full pencil instead of using a mechanical pencil. I'm able to get the full length of that piece of wide graphite that's in this pencil. So I'm able to shade in areas more evenly. I'm also able to shade them in more quickly than I could if I was using a mechanical pencil. If I overlap an area, that's okay. I can always darken an area, so the fact that my number 2 spot here is going into my number 3, not going to matter in a minute. You'll notice that as I'm shading, I'm trying to make my pencil go into long ellipses, kind of a circular pattern. I'm not just going back and forth. It looks it because I'm going so quickly, but they're very long, oval shapes. And you'll also notice that I'm trying to make it so my lines are going in the same direction. I want to try to pay attention to my direction while shading. I don't want to be shading in a bunch of different directions because it's going to make the artwork look very patchy and incomplete. All right, from here, I can keep on refining. I can add in more of my values. I can check my values with my original gauge, but that is about it.
To review, today you are going to be using the mini studio photograph that you did to copy those shapes and create your 5 value levels. From there, you're using your preferred technique for building value to create your 5-point value scale. And last, you're using your preferred technique for building that value across the whole image. You're going to fill in the shapes with their matching value levels. I can't wait to see your finished artwork. Until next time, I'm Mr. Morse. Have a great day.